carnal weapons. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, and drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into its place. For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Carnal weapons. We have seen that the apostles were but scantily armed, there being only 2 swords in their possession. Peter evidently carried one of these and stood ready to make good his boast that he would suffer and, if need be, die in his Lord's service. He evidently struck a downward blow at Malchus's head, and Malchus would have been killed had he not dodged. Jesus spoke these words, Suffer ye thus far, to those who held him, asking them to loose him sufficiently to enable him to touch the ear of Malchus. By the healing of Malchus's ear and the word spoken to Peter, Jesus shows that the sword is not to be used either to defend the truth or to advance his kingdom. Had he not thus spoken and acted, Pilate might have doubted his words when he testified that his kingdom was not of this world. John 18:36. While we know better than to rely upon the aid of the sword for the advance of truth, we are often tempted to put undue trust in other carnal weapons which are equally futile. Wealth and eloquence and elaborate church buildings have but little saving grace in them. It is the truth which wins. Carnal weapons. The angels were silent. Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? Matthew 26:53. The angels were silent. When we comprehend the great price God was willing to pay for the redemption of man, we only then begin to see that something is horribly wrong with the human race. It must have a Savior or it is doomed. Sin cost God his very best. Is it any wonder that the angels veiled their faces, that they were silent in the consternation or amazed confusion as they witnessed the outworking of God's plan? How inconceivable it must have seemed to them when they considered the fearful depravity of sin, that Jesus should shoulder it all. But they were soon to unveil their faces and offer their praises again. A light was kindled that day at Calvary. The cross blazed with the glory of God as the most terrible darkness was shattered by the light of salvation. Satan's depraved legions were defeated, and they could no longer keep all men in darkness and defeat. The angels were silent.